Get started. It is 6:30 p.m. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Nashoba Regional School Committee. And this is a bit of a special meeting. As you guys can see from the multiple agendas that are posted, we're going to do a little bit of agenda gymnastics here for the purpose of authorizing a National Grid easement for temporary power to the School Building Committee. And then we will close that meeting in an effort to then give Alita time to help us get these minutes certified at the next meeting that I will then subsequently open. So that's all technical mumbo jumbo. The meeting is called to order. So I think, well, I guess we won't pledge allegiance right away. So why don't we just go right to some new business? And I'm going to actually ask Amy to move on this first item on the agenda.
Do you
and then
want
we
me
can
to just say what it is before we...
Kirk wants to introduce it first.
Yeah, just real quick. This is just building project stuff, but it has to be the authority of the school committee that gives National Grid the authority of easement to put in the temporary power. Those are the temporary power poles that then goes to the trailers and will power the new building throughout the construction process. So the school committee has to authorize Grid to do that work. And so you all have to approve the chair to sign the document. We close the meeting. Ms. Masterson will construct the meetings from this first meeting. She'll construct the minutes. And then at the end of second meeting, we'll show you the minutes and then we can approve them. That way we can send that in with the approved minutes so that they can begin that process.
Very good. All right, Amy, a motion.
I move to authorize Chairwoman Leah Viverito to sign the Mass Electric / Verizon New England grant of easement agreement as presented and included in the meeting materials.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Scott?
I just wonder, was there any discussion about how broad the authorization we're providing is? It basically says you can do whatever you want to within the confines of this area that's under question, as well as the fact that it's a perpetual agreement. There's no sunsetting or any conditions under which it ends.
Right, so that's all. It's a good question. But the best of my knowledge on this one, because we are the owners, we just have to give permission for that. It is built into the construction activities that is then taken down once the transfer of the power is made from our current poles to the future poles later.
Okay, so we can presumably rescind this authority if we deem necessary sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Any other questions? Yep.
Has this been reviewed by
Yes,
council?
it has been reviewed by council. Yes. No changes of substance.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, everybody, so thank you for that. I'm going to now move to adjourn this special meeting. I hear Jackie first. Thanks, Jackie. All those in favor of adjourning? Very good. That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. All right, so without further ado, everyone, we're going to now open up and call to order the regular meeting of the Nashoba Regional School Committee. And now we may all rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, everybody, the next item on the agenda is public comment, and I'm not seeing anyone in the gallery here for public comment alone. There are people in the gallery, but so we're going to keep moving on to the consent agenda, and I'll turn to Amy for that motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda of April 9th, 2025.
And I'll second that. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
The searches and interrogations policy, were we updated on how on the changes to that are presented?
Yes, we brought that last week.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So nothing has changed since last week?
Nothing has changed since last week.
Okay.
Last meeting.
Yeah.
Not last week.
Okay.
Last
Right.
meeting.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. The school committee chairperson update is, there's nothing new to update, so we're just going to keep moving on to our student representative report, and Ryan is here for us. Hi, Ryan.
Hello. So the first part of this has all been run by Dr. Bolton, so there's no confidentiality risks or anything like that. But we're going to cover a little bit on our student advisory meeting the other day. Just kind of like general themes from the students. So starting off, there was kind of a general consensus across the students that they said, we talked about learning styles, workload, and stress as kind of an overall theme. They say that classes that exhibit multiple styles rather than only specific one's way of kind of assessing students' knowledge is most effectively, so that it's combining projects with tests and other things like that. We found the workload of classes are more manageable when given further notice about due dates and specific outlines on class material and when they'll be assigned. The Bridge program and Student Success Center, there was a huge appreciation for both of those. There's some feedback that says it's beneficial when teachers who teach the same class to communicate and align their course material. So, like, I can share my personal experiences with that is my English teacher and the other honors English teacher, they have like scheduled planned meetings. So each honors English class under those two teachers have the same assignments, same grading, and on the same timeline. Students reported that like the general structure of AP classes they take with clear rubrics are more helpful. So with AP classes having a very specific outline of what a student needs to learn and kind of by when, that's what the kind of the structure we found most helpful. Overall, the tone in the building was very positive towards teachers' approaches with extra help and availability after school. And our group will then look at the engagement survey results in our next meeting, just kind of talk about that. And then Stuco will also be involved in some of this. And then we have French exchange coming up. The robotics team qualified for the World Tournament and the International Fest last Saturday. So, if there's any questions about that, I can answer on my personal behalf of anything like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Amy.
I had a question about the council discussion. You said one of your topics was workload. I was curious if part of the discussion was also about, whether you talked about getting plenty of notice, right, for getting assignments. Did you guys also discuss like giving time in class to work on assignments and big projects? I just wondered if that was part of the discussion as well.
If I can interject for just a second, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Only because this is the advisory group. So one of the norms that we have in the advisory group is a speak your truth norm. So I just want to remind Ryan that to be careful not to mention specifics in the meeting and speak very much to generality, since that's one of our norms in that meeting. The other meeting is student council, where we get into the depths of those things as well.
And I can answer that. Just like in my personal opinion, how I see that is I think that having a system where you are given a class or a specific amount of time in class to initially start an assignment, and then that kind of translates to finish at home, even when it's kind of expected that it won't be finished in class time. But I think having like a start and kind of a guideline in the very beginning of class would be helpful. It tends to be helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions? Gotcha.
It's not a question so much as I just want to say thank you and pass along thanks to the other students that are involved in that for really speaking your thoughts to those things and being honest about it, because that helps us all improve and helps us be better.
Can you clarify just very quickly for the community what is the Student Advisory Council? That's what we call it?
Yeah, the Student Advisory Council is an advisory council to Dr. Boynton and I, and it's for us to understand sort of the operational experience of our students. And so it's a place where at the beginning of the year we set down some norms and brought some initial had some initial conversations about, okay, tell me what your experiences are and where some of the challenges exist, and they bring those forward. Then you may remember Ryan and Ava became board members in their statewide organization, and so they've taken those facilitation skills, have become the facilitators for those meetings, and so we drive down on those kind of questions. So that's why when we were meeting specifically about that, and we had this rich discussion, we said, okay, this is a good discussion to share. Let's just remember to be careful that, because as Ryan was sharing some generalities, we get examples of some specific stories from students about their experiences there. And so Dr. Boynton and I then debrief on those experiences to say, okay, what next? What do we capitalize on? What do we need to address? Those types of things.
And how many students are on the Student Advisory Council?
Total of 18.
18.
And are those chosen by you, Dr. Boyd?
They were volunteered.
And so you put it out to the whole school committee
did.
and anybody can volunteer?
Yeah.
You don't try to get a cross-section of grades or whatever?
Definitely a cross-section of grades and experiences, backgrounds, and it's an open group that will send out. I would envision us doing this continuing next year. We have a number of seniors, so I envision sending additional invitations out to our student body for participation.
Got it.
Yeah, I asked some of our, through Dr. Boynton, some of our faculty leaders that work with students in some of their multicultural clubs to advance students forward to ensure that we had representation of groups in the committee. Because as a school district that is an 85% white school district, we want to make sure that the committee spanned across people, so they self-selected based on race, sexual orientation, religious beliefs. So we have a nice sort of cross-section of perspectives and cultures.
Yeah, I was just want to echo what Sharon said about sharing the feedback with us. And I guess what I'm trying to articulate here is, what did any of the discussion talk about solutions or like the frameworks that guide, like if workload was something that came up within the student advisory committee as an issue, how does that translate into suggesting a solution to a handbook that might,
Yes,
you know,
that's not the function of that meeting.
Okay.
It is really a feedback arena.
So
It's a
then-
feedback arena for Dr. Boynton and myself, and so that
So
we
then
can
you-
understand operational impacts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many people were at the meeting with you, Ryan, in this time around?
This time, I think 13
13 or 14.
13 or so, and then the one before that had like closer to a full 17 or 18.
Okay, great.
It's an outstanding group of kids. And they promised to sign the beam with me when we go do the beam signing. So.
Any other questions? All right, everybody. Thanks, Ryan. As always, bud. Take care of that hand. Huh? That's quite a cast, by the way.
Oh, it's heavy.
Oh, man. All right.
I'll stick around for a little bit.
Okay, very good. You're always welcome. Okay, everybody, so our next item on the agenda here is the superintendent's report, and so I'll turn it over to Superintendent Town.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you may all notice that I am wearing my CBS specials today as I lost my glasses, so if I'm adjusting, forgive me. All right, let me grab my report here. Great. We have a great celebration to bring forward to the committee tonight. As you know before, I had a chance to attend the Worcester County Superintendent's Association Scholar Luncheon last month, and Miss Emily Barrett attended with Dr. Boynton and I had a chance to brief the committee. This is our opportunity to honor her for that celebration, but we also brought forward our salutatorian for this year, Lexi Pribilla. Pribilla. Thank you, Lexi. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Boynton to honor our two wonderful seniors.
Thank you so much. I'd like for both of you to stand, please. And I might stand as well, simply because I'll be covered by the flowers.
Yeah.
All right. So, thank you so much, Madam Chair, for having us, and thank you, school committee members. Truly quite a celebration for the high school, and I love, if we could make this a yearly tradition, I think that would be really cool. This is, I think, the first time that we've done this, so I love it. Okay, so now I get to make you shine. Emily Barrett is the Nashoba class of 2025 valedictorian. Congratulations, Emily. Exceptional student and leader. She's known for her strong character, academic excellence, and commitment to her community. She's self-motivated, highly organized, values listening and understanding others, qualities that make her a natural collaborator and trusted peer. Academically, Emily has pursued quite a rigorous course load at NRHS, multiple honors and AP classes. She has a strong interest towards STEM, and she's excelled in really challenging courses like AP Chemistry, earning top marks. This year, Emily is enrolled in 5 AP classes and is known for her active participation, thoughtful insights, and ability to overcome academic challenges independently. She hopes for a career in biology and research, right? We talked about that. Outside the classroom, Emily is involved in a wide range of extracurriculars. She's been on the cross-country team. She plays in the jazz band, served as class 2025 vice president, co-founded the rock climbing club, and then she also finds time to volunteer with several local organizations, fundraising for community causes, coaching youth sports, supporting animal shelters. She is creative and community-minded. Emily enjoys baking and crocheting in her spare time, often sharing her creations with friends and family. Emily, you have a special blend of academic drive, empathy, and leadership, and you are truly a well-rounded and inspiring student. So congratulations, Emily. All right, next up, and Lexi, you're gonna have to help me get your name right again. Next up is our salutatorian, Alexis Pravilla. Yes. Is our Nashoba class of 2025 salutatorian. Congratulations there, Lexi. Lexi is intelligent, thoughtful, and has a great sense of humor. She is as genuine and grounded as they come. Over the past 4 years, she has distinguished herself as an exceptional student, dedicated athlete, and compassionate leader in her community. I can attest, you are a joy to watch on the basketball court. I love, just so exciting. And Lexi joined us several times at presenting to our 8th graders, which was wonderful. In the classroom, Lexi is a deep thinker with a remarkable ability to look beyond the surface and engage critically with complex ideas. Her academic work reflects intellectual rigor and a strong sense of justice, especially in her advocacy for those who have been marginalized. Outside of school, Lexi is just as impressive. She's a committed member of the girls' basketball team and talented. She finds time to coach younger athletes in Nashoba's middle school programs. She volunteers at Unified Health and Performance, a local training facility that works with clients of all ability levels, including individuals with physical and developmental disabilities. Balancing athletics, academics, and volunteer work with grace, Lexi has become a respected peer and role model. She's got drive, positivity, and sense of purpose, and those set her apart. Lexi hopes to pursue studies in the biomedical field. Congratulations, Lexi. And these flowers are for
He was one. Yes.
All right. Ready?
All right. Laura, can we get to do that?
Oh, this is a good one. Awesome. And thank you again so much for the honor and privilege of being able to publicly recognize these 2 fantastic, strong young women who are going to make us proud as they head off into their next chapter. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Boynton. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
So wonderful to have you. We'll see you on the stage. Awesome. All right, so what a great celebration. Let's move on to other matters in the superintendent's update.
Yeah, just at this point, I need to brief the committee. Unfortunately, our principal of Center School, Ms. Lenore Zavalek, has elected to move on to other endeavors at the conclusion of the school year. It just affords me an opportunity to thank Principal Zavalek for the wonderful job she's done. She came in, crafted meaningful relationships with our staff and students, and so we support her in her decision and wish her all the best in that. So it does put us in a place where it's time to do a principal search again. And so I've included the content of the letter I sent to the community in the report this week. But Madam Chair, I'm specifically pointing as a rep of Stowe as well, that if your delegation can make a decision to see who might be available to join the interview committee when we do interviews on May 5th, Monday, May 5th. So I believe we have a delegation meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock, so we can certainly discuss then. But if you can coordinate as a delegation, a representative that might be available to participate there, that would be much appreciated.
Okay.
So it is late in the season for hiring and principals, so we'll be running our collecting applications, as you say, through April 23rd, at which point on May 1st, the cabinet team will screen the candidates we deem as being eligible based upon their credentials. We'll have panel interviews on the 5th, followed by site visits on the 12th and 13th of May. The community forum has proved to be popular on Zoom. It's well attended on Zoom, so we'll continue that practice. And that'll be the evening of the 13th from 6:30 to 8. My hope is to make an announcement by May 23rd. That gap there is to allow for conversations, reference checks, negotiations, all those things that happen in between. And so before we stop there to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Friend, I'll take any questions from the community, if they have any.
Any questions, anyone?
I'd just like to commend the superintendent and his team for putting this process in place that seeks feedback from so many different stakeholders in this decision. It helps ensure that you're going to hire the right candidate for the job. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. You're actually even spurring me to think about another feedback device that we collected. So one of the ways that we design the questions that we ask and to ensure that we're putting core values forward, a form survey was sent to the center community with that letter that's linked in there, and I am collecting. We are going to send it again to collect that information, and so we'll be collecting all that information together. We've learned some fabulous ways that you can collectively grab questions and use AI tools to get comprehensive questions that encompass multiple ideas, and so we're going to have some fun with that to make sure that the questions we're asking our candidates are thorough and meet the needs of our school system and our community. So we're looking forward to that. I know Assistant Superintendent Friend is up next, and she has 2 items, and so I'll turn it over to you, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing. The first update is relative to the Student Opportunity Act and an update, a progress report, if you will. As the committee may remember, school districts are required by Mass General Law to create 3-year Student Opportunity Act plans. The committee will likely remember that we presented our 3-year plan last year. And so as is required by Mass General Law and by DESE, districts are required to provide annual progress reports. And so that's the purpose of this update for you this evening. Included in the update is the complete progress report update, hyperlinked for you there. That is the update, the complete update that I submitted to DESE at the end of March. And then I also worked to create a highlights document for the committee and the community, which I think is maybe a little bit more palatable to understand the scope of the progress report, which is quite detailed. So I'd just like to speak to those highlights. Thank you, Alita, for presenting those. The committee will remember that we have 2 focus areas that have been outlined in our Student Opportunity Act. One is focused around inclusive curriculum adoption, specifically centered on our K-5 literacy and the implementation of high-quality instructional materials there, which included a comprehensive approach to early literacy and then supporting curriculum implementation. As a reminder, with our Student Opportunity Act plan, we work to select efforts and initiatives that are aligned with our strategic plan and efforts that were already underway. And so we're working to lift and elevate this as an area that we've spent quite a bit of energy, both in terms of time, energy, and physical support around. So that's our first focus area, and I've divided up and structured the update into the benchmarks that have been met relative to this focus area, evidence of impact of those benchmarks, and then what are our next steps. The first being around, again, that inclusive curriculum adoption. The second is around our work around lifting innovation pathways at our high school. So as a means of highlighting the benchmarks met for our work around literacy, I believe this will be just a review for the committee as we've been providing the committee with updates throughout the school year. We have implemented our comprehensive ELA and literacy program in K-5. If you can just scroll up just a little bit, Alita, just scroll up the other way. So we have implemented our new literacy curriculum in K-5. We've implemented Wilson Foundations in terms of strengthening our foundational program for literacy. We have implemented, purchased, and instructed our teachers with decodable readers in K-2, and we've introduced Haggerty to support phonemic awareness in pre-K and K. We provided professional development, which will continue to be ongoing, but that has been an effort, an intentional effort for us this year, as well as continuing to steward our implementation of our multi-tiered system of support through our WIN blocks, our line schedules, and our PLC model. In terms of evidence of impact, and I spoke to this during our last meeting when we reviewed our STAR early literacy and STAR reading results, specifically as it relates to this particular implementation. We are seeing evidence of impact with our universal screening data, with indications of improved literacy achievement across all grade levels, as demonstrated by our winter results. As I had spoke about, we are seeing fewer students being identified in the intervention and urgent intervention category, specifically with a 50% reduction in students falling in that urgent intervention category since the fall of 2023. And then we are seeing some closing of gaps with our identified and targeted subgroups as has identified here. For further data as it's related to our student groups, you can refer to the completed progress report there, which is hyperlinked. Next steps, as it relates to this particular focus indicator, as the committee is aware, we are engaged with the PRISM 1 grant, which is a multi-year initiative that the committee is aware of that will continue to support and help us support and strengthen early literacy in our reading program, pre-K through 3. And so we'll continue to keep the committee updated on that exciting work. The second indicator is relative to our innovation pathways efforts. As the committee is aware, we have launched and received designation for 2 pathways. Both are now fully operational with 41 students currently enrolled. We secured a DESE planning grant to develop a 3rd innovation pathway in information technology, which we are targeted to launch in fall of 2025. We should be hearing from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education about that designation in the next 2 weeks. We've worked to revise and develop high school courses to align with dual enrollment and advanced coursework standards, specifically revamping and developing a new dual enrollment course, which we anticipate offering next year in the fall of 2025. In terms of evidence of impact with these efforts, we are seeing strong student interest and participation in our pathways, strong attendance rates for our students in these pathways, and just positive anecdotal feedback from students and families. We will be soliciting formal feedback from our students in the pathways through a form and a feedback loop with the support of Bridget Hannigan, our Innovation Pathways Coordinator, at the end of this year to help inform what's working and what will be our next steps next year. In terms of next steps as it relates to this focus area, we anticipate launching a third innovation pathway and further expanding advanced course offerings with the planned launch of Project Lead the Way, which will be an advanced level course also in the fall 2025. So those are the highlights of the SOA plan. And as I had indicated, the complete progress report is included in the update. Happy to answer any questions.
That's a lot, so that's very, very cool. But I wonder if you guys have any questions about this?
Quick comment. Yeah, I think what we're seeing also is this is work that is not new to any of you. This is work that Assistant Superintendent and her team have been presenting on for quite some time now as a requirement for the Student Opportunity Act. This is the summary document that we put there. This is an outstanding effort by our team to submit these documents. It is an exemplar. And so when I have a chance to network with other superintendents, they are incredibly impressed by the work of this team in culminating that work. And I think it's reflected in our award of the PRISM grant, frankly, because I think they check these things when they're making assessments on these grants. And when they see that they're done so well in other arenas, they know we're not making this stuff up. We're putting it into play. So thank you, Assistant Superintendent.
Laura, I wonder if, could you clarify for me, you said that there are 41 students enrolled in the two pathways that currently exist. You're probably doing course selection right now, so you're maybe going to be bringing that third pathway online. Are kids registering for that pathway already? Mm-hmm. And so one question that I had from a parent, do we cap the number on how many people can join each pathway? Do we have like a set number of seats?
We do. I don't want to speak in error. I can provide that information at the next meeting. It's capped by class. I think it's 20 per class.
You mean like per graduating class?
Yes, per graduating class. But we're being really careful to be as inclusive as possible because the intention of Pathways is not to create barriers for students. It's really to lift the ceiling for all students. So it's similar to the question of how many paragraphs do I have to write?
Would you like a brief summary of that in the next superintendent report?
I think that would be great, just to know a little bit more about that, because I know that some parents expressed some concern that they would have to race to get in.
So I can provide an update at the next,
We'll do that in the next meeting.
But I can tell you to date, no student has been turned away.
And as you increase the number of pathways, there's only more opportunity. Yeah. Any other questions?
I guess I had a quick, I don't remember this. Can you talk about the dual enrollment course that you mentioned here? I don't remember that. You may have mentioned that, I just forgot.
So we have 2 courses that we anticipate offering for next year. One is Tech Essentials for the Modern World, and the other is Product Development. So both associated with Middlesex.
Okay, and they're both tied to the pathways?
Yes.
Are there other dual enrollment courses that are
Those
not
are-
tied to the pathways?
Those are the only 2 we have right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are both in one of the pathways or multiple pathways? Are those just with the manufacturing and engineering?
They're in the business and finance department, but this is part of the intentionality with the curriculum development work for approving the large grant in the consent agenda, but where you see the request for stipends for curriculum revision work and development, that is where a bulk of this work on curriculum revision is happening, is with stipendary work. That's last summer. This is when these 2 courses, one being revamped and one being created, happened last summer.
And just to clarify, I feel like you said this last time, Laura, but these are being taught by Nashoba teachers.
Correct.
And not being outsourced, which is the best of all worlds. Yeah. Question?
Yeah, just a clarification on classes offered through the pathway. Are they only available to, my understanding was that students trying to pursue these innovative pathway certifications or the pathway, we're taking courses already available at Nashoba that fit the criteria of the pathway. So even if you're not in one of these pathways, is that the case with these dual enrollment classes, that you don't have to be in the pathway to take them?
That's correct.
Okay. But they would check a box
That's
needed to
Right.
advance through the pathway.
Right, back again to revisit the vision is not to create barriers for
Yeah.
our students, it's to increase access to opportunities for all students.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I think that might be all the questions. So we'll move the agenda now to the next item, which is,
But we still need to do the
Curriculum.
mathematics.
oh, forgive me, so you have
We
another item?
have one more item, is the strategic update on mathematics.
Okay, keep it going, Laura.
Okay, so the next item is relative to an update for the committee around our 608 math curriculum review process. We had presented to the committee in December, which we have linked here in the update as a reminder. And so just to provide the committee of where we're at in the work with our 608 curriculum review process. As a reminder, we're also in the curriculum review process for 9 through 12 math and 9 through 12 science. We started 9 through 12 science last year. With the chair and the superintendent's permission, we'd like to present an update for 9 through 12 math and science in May. But for this evening, the update is specific to our 608 math curriculum review and where we're at with that. So we've outlined the steps that have been taken. They follow in similar fashion to the process that we took for K through 5 ELA last year that we presented on as well, so similar kind of process. And we're coming to a close on the process. So to recap, we have a committee, our middle school math team with our special educators and our administrators have been involved with the curriculum review process. I'd like to commend the work of our curriculum director, Candace McBrearty, for helping to lead that work. She's done an outstanding job with attending to the work, following the pathway that had been led with our ELA work, and working specifically with our department head at the high school, Mr. Melbourne, to ensure vertical alignment, which we know is important for all content areas and is critically important for math, vertical alignment. And so our district plans to implement some vertical articulation, particularly as it relates to Algebra 1 curriculum that we're offering in grade 8 and in grade 9 to make sure we have a really strong through line there for students. And that work will continue as we review our curriculum in Algebra 2 and in geometry at the high school. But more to come on that in May when we present. As the committee is aware and is reminded, we received a grant to receive support from TNTP, which is high quality professional development provider, to help support our curriculum director and our team in the process, and also to work to help support and lift professional development around the instructional pedagogy that's necessary to implement the curriculum. That has happened and that is continuing to happen now. That grant has also provided an allocation to support half of the cost of our curriculum materials. As outlined there, our team of teachers has implemented 2 curricula, illustrative math and Carnegie, and has provided feedback. The teachers have provided feedback on the field testing as well as students. And I thought you may be interested in seeing what those surveys look like that we asked teachers for feedback and for the students. So I included copies of those surveys there in the report. So as we're ending the process, very shortly we will be reaching a consensus decision with our teachers around the selected curricula. So I will be looking forward to presenting the committee with our update and where we land with that soon. We'll also say, because I skipped over it, but we did solicit feedback from near peer districts We went on a site visit, and we met with our partners in Northborough, Southborough as well, to talk to their assistant superintendent and their teachers to get feedback about how it's going with the curriculum in districts. So that was very helpful to our process as well. Great. It's a lot of information for me to summarize very quickly and to encapsulate a lot of work that's been completed.
Right. Yes. So not to minimize, but we appreciate your concise explanation. Thanks, Laura. Any questions on the math curriculum review? Did you give us a time, looking to adopt in September?
We will implement in September. We will use the funds from the grant to support the curriculum materials adoption, and then support the remaining purchase with our FY26 budget that's already been allocated. So we'll be implementing in the fall. Our teachers are excited.
Good stuff.
All right, everyone. I think that then concludes the superintendent's update. Okay. So, moving on, everybody, to new business. We have the superintendent has prepared for us his annual school choice presentation, which will illuminate enrollment statistics and data. So I will turn it back over to Kirk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, I enjoy doing this one, as I like to dig deep into the numbers of enrollment in our towns and try to get a sense of what we need to do for our students and for the future. So just for our new members of the committee, school choice is a provision in Mass General Law where students have the right to leave their home districts and attend other school districts, unless those other school districts take a vote to not have school choice. So the default is school choice. So you ultimately have to take a vote if you're not willing to participate in order to close school choice. If you take no vote at all, then you automatically default to a school choice district. And so as we looked at this question several years ago, there was some, you'll get to see where we saw some differentials in revenue for in and out of our school choice students. And we made the decision that it would be prudent to re-enter the school choice arena again. Ms. Park, you remember these. But we would do so in a very, very measured way so as to not bring additional cost thresholds into our district. And I'm happy to report at the very beginning that's been effective for us. And so that same methodology that I have presented to the committee the last 2 years is the methodology I'm once again presenting to you tonight. I'll begin at the very beginning of the presentation. There's a blue link, and I just share this with you. This is the table on which the data is gathered from, and it has our current class sizes. This is October 1 historical by grade going all the way back to the 2000-2001 school year, what total enrollment looked like in all of our towns. We get a look at Lancaster K-8 over that same period of time, Bolton K-8, Stowe K-8, and then there's a report called the School Attending Report, which is essentially the census of your towns. This one you will not find in state data tables. It is one we've created by adding up our 3 towns together. So we get a sense of what that looks like in the district for Bolton, Lancaster, and Stowe as well. And when we look at these categories, it'll show you that the percentage of students, I need to open those up. The percentage of students in the regional, vocational, tech, collaboratives, charters, out of district, homeschool, in-state private, and out-of-state private. Okay, so that's just a quick little primer on the data. But moving into that, our goal here is to identify and track where students are enrolled. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is some of the school attending data, analyze and track those trends, and compare, excuse me, it says, this is a bullet I took off. Last year we included the NESDEC reports. I didn't include those reports this year because I didn't find that they added substantial information to the report. So forgive me for missing that piece. So in a school attending report, we're tracking students who live in our towns and attend the Nashoba schools, but also attend schools that are not in Nashoba. This is quite a process. It begins January 1st. It takes about 2 months as school districts reach out to each other and follow up on where students are enrolled and provide each other information so that they can collect that census data. And so when we look at that, here are the categories that make up all the students that reside in our towns. These are the categories I just described: in-state private, Nashoba Regional School District, charter schools, out-of-district public schools, homeschooling, vocational, collaborative, and out-of-state private. So when you look at this, you'll see this is the Nashoba Regional School District, and we look at the population of students that live in our towns over the last 10 years. And you can see that has declined by 300 students over that time, meaning there are 300 less people ages 5 to 17, 5 to senior year graduation, they may turn 18 that year, residing in our 3 towns. So our population is going down over those 10 years. When we look at Bolton, you can see that Bolton has remained relatively steady over that time. If we just look straight number over, we have a decline of about 33 students in that amount of time, but you can see they have sort of fluctuated around the same line, a little bit over, a little bit less. And it's also true of Lancaster. You can see Lancaster, again, it's about 34 less, but they've continued to hover around between that 1,100 and 1,200 number. And when we look at Stowe, you will see a significant decrease in the number of school-age students in the town of Stowe over those same 10 years. This is an important piece to understand because it has significant budgetary implications in terms of how the assessments are calculated based on 5-year rolling averages. So to illustrate that, I've laid these trend lines against each other to give you a sense of what that's looked like over the last 10 years. And where you see there was a pretty significant gap between Stowe and the other 2 towns over time, to where now our 3 towns very closely approximate each other in terms of census information. When we break this down as a region, in a pie chart, you can see that 85% of the students that reside in our towns attend Nashoba Regional Schools. The school attending report, since it is only census data, does not include any students that come to us through school of choice. Here in Bolton, the participation rate is 87.6, Lancaster 82.4, and Stowe 86.1. When you look at those enrollment rates over time, you can see the total for Nashoba Regional School District, Bolton, Lancaster, and Stowe. So if you look over the 10-year period, the participation in NRSD enrollment has gone down 2% of the population over that time. Bolton going down approximately 3%, Lancaster going up almost 2%, and Stowe coming down at a rate of about 4% over those 10 years. So how do we predict future models off of these needs? And so we build a 5-year historical rolling average model that I use to help me sort of understand what do the enrollment changes look like at each grade. So it's based off of this historical enrollment table that is part of the data set that's provided on the very first page. And when you look at 1 year of change, FY 24 to 25, you can see these are the total number of students in my grade levels I can see are missing here. But the way that would look is, we can look at this one to cheat. The first column is K to 1. When students go from kindergarten to first grade, that cohort increases by 9. Last year, first to second decreased by 4. second to third increased by 6, then next increased by 4, 5, 9. This is the 8 to 9. Last year, 37 students from FY24 to FY25 were in 8th grade and left in 9th grade. But we build that off of a 5-year rolling average to protect from just a sudden increase in one year at one particular grade level. To get a sense of this, I will say these numbers can be, should be taken with sort of a jaundiced eye, because one of the years in there is the return from COVID year, when many folks elected to homeschool during the time of hybrid remote learning. Next year that won't be the case. We'll be fully out of that cycle. So, but it does give us a general idea for which to look at. So these are the numbers that I use when we think of projections, and you can see that 8 to 9 is an area that we look at, the 5-year rolling average being around 46 students. So here's our current enrollment in the NRSD as of April 1st, 2,993 students. So when we look at school choice, that just gives you general information around the census and stuff. So before we get into talking about classes and schools and things like that, I'll pause to take any questions from the committee about just general enrollment trends based on census data.
So first of all, thank you very much for putting this together. I think this whole report is very helpful and informative, so much appreciated.
Yeah.
Do you have any intelligence around why students in our district opt out of the district? And Lancaster in particular seems to have an exceptionally high rate of opt-outs for various reasons. Do you have any, have you had any conversations or any feedback from parents explaining why they would choose to send their kids elsewhere?
Yeah, we have some historical information on that. You can see in Lancaster that the participation's actually gone up 2% over the last 10 years, but they have historically, going back 20 years, have participated between the 78 to 82% mark. There is a value, and I think it is tied also in Lancaster back to the college that was once there in the community there, chose to send their students into private settings. Interestingly enough, the private setting participation in Lancaster has dropped dramatically. And while the charter participation has gone up some. Another piece that we look at, Mr. Powell, is that in FY19 was when, or excuse me, maybe it was FY20 was the year that the new Minuteman was opened, and was a very attractive setting, particularly with some of the science sectors that they built into the school with physics and computer science became very, very popular. And that's where we saw a significant uptick in students from Stowe and Bolton attending Minuteman. What I will say is this year, our largest cohort in the school system is the 8th grade. We're 259 students. And we do have our confirmations for Minuteman right now. And we are actually down about, I believe, 11, 12 students from last year. Currently, 35 students are enrolled to go to Minuteman, and we have a total of 38 that are electing that we know of today, going from 8th and 9th grade in another setting. Some of those others are like going to the specialized ski school in Maine and things of that nature. Sometimes they're very specialized why they're going other places. But what I will say about this data is while you do see a 2% decline in NRSD and Bolton being 3, Stowe being 4, increase in 2 of Lancaster over 10 years, these are very, very, very steady participation rates. So it is something that drastic change, with the caveat of we have experienced some of that change with the advent of the new Minuteman.
Jackie.
Have we ever tracked how many students come back who have left us and how that is factored?
Specifically, By student, no. What we can pick up on in the 5-year, excuse me, is that in the 5-year rolling averages, that there are times where students from 9th to 10th grade do come back to us. We've seen an uptick there. We didn't see it in the last year. These again are the 5-year rolling averages. If we look here, you can see that some students have returned 9th grade to 10th grade, but it's a small amount. I have learned also, and this is an experience we learned last year, that for students that left us 9th grade to 10th grade in high school or 10th grade to 11th grade, oftentimes it's for very targeted athletic reasons, targeted musical reasons, or performance reasons, and elect to do school choice in other environments.
Kurt, can you go back to that spreadsheet you were just showing with no color?
This one?
I guess that will do. That one, actually.
Yeah.
So we have the enrollment rates, but I wonder if there's any value in, not now, but maybe next year, adding like comparisons. Because if we have Nashoba attending at 85%, maybe that's really high compared to our other DART schools. And that would give us more context in understanding what an 85% attending rate is.
I actually have done some of that. I didn't update that this year, but I have looked at that. I'll go digging through the files, see if I can find it.
Yeah, and I mean, just for next year, maybe it's an
For
interesting
context,
column to say, like, the average for our DART schools that the state compares us to, the attending rate is 81%,
Yeah.
you know, accounting for socioeconomics, et cetera. The steadiness of it is good
Yeah.
to know.
I fully anticipate. I saw this phenomenon when I was an employee in Natick, when the new Natick High School first opened in 2010. There was a surge of students returning back to that high school. We just saw that there's a natural attraction that comes with the new building. I fully anticipate we're going to see something like that. What I will say is some of the feedback that we received from this past year, this is the part that looked different to me. And our applications to Minuteman were approximating near 60. Only 35 elected to accept that enrollment. And some of the feedback that we gathered has been around some excitement generating at the high school and the innovation pathways. And I think that is a direct result of some of the targeted efforts that have been made this fall to really highlight those programs and get kids excited about the Nashoba Regional High School.
Sean?
Just trying to understand your numbers here. Where are students that are participating in school choice and coming in not from one of these 3 towns? Because I would just assume in that last one you had up, the NRSD column would include those students, but it seems to just be the sum of the 3 towns.
Yeah. So, as this is what you see here, the out of district column. So here we have the regional school system. Here's VOTEC, collaborative, charter, out of district. So if it's out of district, and so this is the state required state reporting categories. In the added district, you're going to have your school choice students that live in-house and go out, along with students that attend other districts that we might contract with to deliver specific services.
I think I'm talking about the other way.
Yeah.
Students not from one of these 3 towns.
They won't be
attending.
Into here. We don't
the students that what?
That aren't from our 3 towns that are attending.
That won't be in the school attending report.
Okay.
That because the school attending report is simply the residents. How are the residents participating in the public schools?
But the next part of your presentation does take into account all of the children
Yes.
who are in the
That's it.
classrooms now in our
Yes.
school choice and in, so that he can make a good prediction on how many more we should allow.
That's exactly right. So when you see this column here, Mr. Simon, where it says public school, that is the aggregate of regional, VOTEC, collaborative, charter at a district, because those are all publicly funded sectors. So 94% of the students that reside in our towns participate in public education, and we are capturing 85.34%. So 10% of the students in our towns approximately, or 8% of the students in our town approximately, are attending publicly funded schools but not in Nashoba.
And that matters because that's part of the funding formula of the
Correct.
money we get from the state.
Right.
And then we have to pay out if they're going to various other places.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks. This kind of follows up on the point that Leah was just trying to make. If you could go back to the slide that Leah asked you to show. There was,
The no color.
yeah, the enrollment rates in Nashoba School broken out by town. So in Bolton, if you look, if you compare the 87.64% of Bolton, eligible Bolton students attending Nashoba schools to the 90.6% in fiscal year 16, if you just compared those two numbers, our percentage of students in our town going to Nashoba is decreased
By 3%, yes.
by 3%. So how does that affect our, just big picture here, our assessment to Bolton in terms of their, how does that tie into their assessment? Would that actually cause an additional cost to the town of Bolton because
No.
those students aren't attending Nashoba? Should their assessment decrease because that number is going down?
I
How are
wouldn't
those
tie this chart to the assessments at all. I would tie this graph to the assessments.
Because that's the 5-year rolling average?
Because this
In
is,
your town?
yeah. However, this is just an illustration of those attending. So our enrollment averages, there's two ways that we fund the schools. One is based upon the October 1 rates. And Mr. Mulcairn, those numbers that we get on the cherry sheets for our October 1 numbers are based upon the number of students who reside in our towns that attend our schools, which is why it's not always tied to the exact number you see on the October 1 report.
Correct. It's DESE's calculation based on our October 1 submitted SIMS, our student count, to them based on their run their formulas to calculate Chapter 70 and also tell you what your enrollment numbers are, your foundation enrollment. The regional agreement specifically calls out foundation enrollment, which is a state term, so we use that's why the state number is used.
Okay, so you couldn't look at this chart and draw a conclusion that the assessments should be going down because our percentage of students going to
Correct.
NRC is going down, or the
Correct.
assessments going up because we're paying more for the students who aren't going to NRC, or that kind of thing.
Correct.
Thank you.
And that's why Mr. Mulcairn always tries to include that slide in the budget workshop launch to illustrate that very point. We'll make sure to include that slide again at our workshop, because that's a good one to amplify.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point? All right, so now we'll head into the school choice recommendations.
Okay. So, school choice presentation. This is based upon seats and chairs, And so when we look at this, some important things to note. I opened the meeting explaining some of these things. We need to do this by June 1st. We can limit the number of students that we accept as well as the grades and locations where they're assigned. If there's more applicants than available seats, a lottery will be conducted. I will explain that at the end of the presentation, because my last slide is information based upon how the committee ultimately votes, but I'll give you a projection of what that would look like. Employees can enroll their children in school choice, but they're subject to the same lottery provisions as any other surrounding town member. And then you are obligated to provide that student education all the way through high school graduation. And we do give preference to siblings who already attend our schools via school choice. So this is an interesting graph in terms of the historical trends. So this information goes back to 2013. 2013 was the last year when school choice was open under previous execution of the policy. And at that time, you can see in the school district in 2013, this was right before the height of our enrollment, that really our committee said we had to stop doing this because we didn't have space at our high schools. 218 of our students resided in towns other than our 3 towns. So, and at the same time, 74 of our students approximately were going out. So there's no such thing as a 0.5, a 0.8, or a 0.4 student. That's a calculation based upon participation. Mr. Mulcairn probably has more expertise on that than I do.
It's when they start, it's when they come in or potentially leave their school choice program.
Yeah. So all the students that attend are whole, full-bodied students. So you can see when that policy was ended, how over time it declined. Meanwhile, interestingly enough, students that left Nashoba to go to school choice experienced a similar decline up through 2019, and then peaked up a little bit after that and has remained basically steady over the last several years. But what you can see is with that enrollment, you can see where you would be getting a surplus back in school choice dollars, to where you're then in 2021 having a deficit in school choice dollars. And so we made a decision 2 years ago. My recommendation to the committee was we reintroduce school choice, and we do it in a methodical, responsible way, which I'll describe, so that we can begin working back up to that, knowing we can turn that valve off at any time we want, if for fiscal reasons we feel that's important at the time. Here's the tuition difference over that same graph. You can see the school district brought in an additional, the differential in revenue was $641,000 in 2013, and then our negative differential was just 3 years ago at $359,000. And you can see since we've instituted that policy, we are slowly climbing back up again. This is the total enrollment of school choice students in our district. So we have 39 students participating with us currently. And you will see that 4 of those students are seniors at Nashoba Regional High School. So if we were not to open school choice and everybody returned to us again, we would have 35 students next year. So to maintain that, we would need at least 4 students to come back into the district through school choice. This is just a breakdown to help us understand last year's decision. So the way this is laid out is we only open school choice in the following locations: Florence Sawyer, Hale, Luther Burbank, and Nashoba Regional High School. And you can see the white column is how many seats the committee voted to open, and then ultimately how many seats were filled. And so that you can see at the end of this that the school district elected to open 42 school choice seats. We only filled 19 of them. And we went back into our notes. If you recall, we came back to the committee because there was one, at our high school, we had one grade level where we had to do a lottery, and ultimately came back to ask for admittance into that. We granted. We still never reached that number anyway because we got declines. So in that way, these students were able to attend Nashoba Regional School District. So that just gives you a sense of sort of the demand of how people are accessing school choice. So in managing enrollments, I would continue to advocate we do not open enrollment in K1 and 2. Those are complex grades, and it's the ones you can see from the enrollment charts that experience the most volatility and change based upon if people went to Montessori kindergartens or did early K1 private and came into the school. So we like to make sure that we protect for that. No more than 22, we base this off of a model of no more than 22 students, knowing that our class size standards are 24. So that gap always leaves a buffer for move-ins to come in. We have space without having to add another educator to a class. We do not want to have more than 220 students at a grade level at Nashoba Regional High School. That would tip us into adding faculty in departments. And also no more than 260 students in any of the grade levels 3 to 8, because as we're sort of approximating that losing approximately 40 students from 8th grade to 9th grade, that's the buffer that we have there. So even if we have school choice seats available, we exceeded in the district 260 at that grade level, we wouldn't open that grade level at all to protect for future years. And then for grades 3 to 5, we do not open school choice if the enrollment is within 4 of the class floor as well. We also said no more than 4 students per grade level per school should be considered. And prioritize lower class sizes across locations to balance the classroom sizes. So we would look at if the classroom sizes, say, were 21 in one location, 19 in another, we would prioritize the 19. Okay, so this is just a chart that just sort of explains the notes that I read to you. And let's begin. Here we are in Nashoba Regional School District. And this is a summary chart of, in FY25, I showed you earlier, there are 2,993 students attending. We're projecting that the enrollment would be 2,939 next year, based off of the models I showed earlier. And it would be, if we maximized all the school choice seats you're about to see recommended, that would bring the total enrollment to 2,988. I want you to note, 4th grade is highlighted because the total number of seats available for 4th grade in all schools is 7, and it's not to exceed 260 per grade level. Okay. So starting at Nashoba Regional High School, you'll see 9th grade, our projected enrollment right now is 221. Which is solid. We were originally projecting that enrollment to be 208. That's an indicator that we have 259 in that grade level now. That's an indicator that more students are choosing to stay with us into high school. We want that trend to continue. However, we do have room to accept 4 students at each grade level at Nashoba Regional High School. At Florence Sawyer School, you can see how the chart flows here. Current enrollment is 740, projected is 725. If the recommendation is fully utilized, it would be 739 students. Mary Rowlandson Elementary, there would only be 1 grade level eligible based on those measures to allow 4 students. This would be the first re-entry for Mary Rowlandson, as they currently do not have any school choice students. At Luther Burbank, we would have room for 4 per grade level, based upon the fact that in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, as you guys know from budget discussions, we have 4 sections at each of those grade levels. When I finish talking about the schools, I'm going to come back to talking about availability of space in the buildings as well. For Center School, you can see there's 86 students projected at 4th grade, so that means there's room for 2. That would take us to that threshold. Hill Middle School, we would not admit 7th grade students, but we would 6th and 8th. And so the recommendation to the Nashoba Regional School District, this is just a summary of what I showed you. The next slide is that summary put into motion considerations when you talk about this next week. I want to come back to a particular slide. I think Florence Sawyer shows this well. Is all of our schools are built in terms of their capacity on a model of 4 sections per grade, essentially, with spaces for related arts as well. Your gymnasium, your art room, your music room, so on and so forth. And so our schools, the rooms are being fully utilized right now. But as you can see, if that's the case with Florence Sawyer School, in this model, we would have 3 sections of kindergarten, 3 sections of second grade. I'll remind everyone, we are fully expecting 4 sections of kindergarten at Florence Sawyer School next year, as they're near the cusp of that. Excuse me. So that second grade room then isn't necessarily utilized. What often happens in that case during those years, principals make some site-based decisions to relocate maybe some intervention services, OT spaces, things like that, to utilize those spaces. But they are dedicated for the classroom space, so that when the first grade rolls up the next year, it returns back to being a second grade classroom. So if you look across that, we know the high school, we're building a new one of those, so I think that's not necessarily pertinent. But Florence Sawyer School will have 1 room that is not occupied by a grade level class. Mary Rowlandson would have 4 of their rooms as we currently understand them. None at Luther Burbank Center. There would be 2 as currently constructed. We continue to monitor the kindergarten section at Center. We have received no changes in enrollment at Center in the last 6 weeks. So that number is looking more consistent for Center School. Hale, we're utilizing all those classrooms. So it's just a basic place to start, as the question was raised about how we're studying and utilizing our spaces. It's a place to begin with the committee to just show you that. So with that, here's the recommendation to the committee, the motion considerations. The last side, I am not assuming a vote, but I do want to share with you that this is the announcement that will then be put out to the community, that applications will be available beginning Friday, May 2nd. The deadline will be Thursday, May 29th at 12 o'clock p.m. There's a public lottery, if necessary, at a grade level, Friday, May 30th at 10 o'clock in this room. Any applications received after the lottery deadline will be filled on a first-come, first-served basis if a seat is available in that slot. And then no applications will be accepted after June 26th. Because at that point, principals need to plan. So that's when we just shut down any possible retreat. So, Madam Chair, that concludes the presentation.
So thank you, Superintendent Downing. That was very comprehensive as always. Just so that the committee and the community are aware, the way that this works is that we are required to hold a school choice hearing every year. At that hearing, we are to hear from the community on their wishes with regard to opening, or rather closing school choice or leaving it open. So that hearing is set to take place at our next meeting, which is online. And I will also say that we will be then, on the agenda, there will be a vote on whether or not we will adopt the superintendent's recommendations.
Double meeting night.
Okay. Yeah. So
We open the hearing, close the hearing, and then open the school.
Of course, yeah. So any questions on the recommendations right now, Scott?
So I actually have 2 points I want to talk about. First, I want to thank you very much for providing that context around the capacity situation. I think, and Mary Rowlandson provides a good example of, clearly it looks like there's several classrooms that might not be used at this time. So, something to start thinking about, what does that mean as far as how we use our space? But that's something, again, to think about and talk about at a later date. However, on my second point, you talked about 4th grade having capacity constraints.
Yes.
And specifically said the district, based on our 260 student capacity constraint, could only have 4 admittances to 4th grade. But if you look at it by school, it looks like we have 7.
I might catch up to you here, Mr. Powell. Correct.
So how do you reconcile that?
We reconcile that because at 4th grade, the total population is 256 students. So in the recommendation, we can't exceed 260. So
But you're recommending 263.
what we're recommending is that we open those seats, but we're only going to accept 4 applications.
Okay.
So that leaves us. So that means those slots are available. There's actually 7 seats available, but we're only letting in 4 to keep us at the 260 mark.
And that's in the motion. I'm asking, actually, is that in the motion? Because I
I'm
think
double checking my work here.
at the motion consideration, it says that Center School 4th grade can take 2, Mary Rowlandson can take 4, Luther Burbank can take 1, which is, I think, what Scott was saying. So if we open school choice 4th grade 7 seats.
Yeah, I need to reconcile the recommended motion. Yeah.
Okay. And tell us which, I mean, ultimately, that identifies the cap that each school could take, but the motion should say at the 4th grade level, the most we can take is 4.
Yeah, we did this in a previous year, so I'll go back to that language.
And it seems
Thank you for
like-
that catch, Mr. Powell.
You could put them all at Mary Rowlandson, or you could sprinkle them across the other schools, is ultimately what could happen, right?
Yeah, it's no obvious right way. I mean, it looks like Center's got, both Center and Florence Sire are already around 86, 87, so if you put all 4 at Rowlandson, they get to 87. That'd be the most equitable way to do it.
Okay. And I mean, just to be clear for the community, we take kids into the lottery by the numbers, but then operationally, you then decide which school they go to.
Yeah, we do collect requests from families when they do that. And so we do our best to honor requests, but requests are not guaranteed.
Okay. Amy.
I have 3 questions. The first one has to do with the school choice recommendations for the high school. Because I think you had that slide up that showed, okay, this one works. So you're recommending 4 seats at the table per grade, but our class sizes are well below the cap of 220. That was in your kind of like guidelines for where to cap things off. Is that superseded by the other bullet that says no more than 4 students per grade level per school should be considered? Is that what's capping that?
Yep.
And where does that guiding principle come
It was
from?
presented to you in this meeting 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I remember.
So I brought a methodology forward, and the committee wanted me to limit that. So that's what we came up with at that time.
Yeah, and I kind of remember this being brought up last year as like, should we revisit that number? So I guess I'm just posing that question because this really feeds into my second question and about the tuition gaps, or that you had a chart that showed, you know, $204,000 last year. Because we're sending out more students than we're receiving. So I guess I'm just asking, like, is that something we should revisit to try to close that gap, especially at the high school where we're significantly under the 220 students per grade at the high school?
Well, when we had that situation last year in terms of our applicants, that's when we came to the committee to ask if we could enlarge that by 2 more, and I think we could apply that methodology. If you look at this table, you can see that while we had 4 seats available for all 4 grades last year, we couldn't even fill them. So we can increase it to 20, we can increase it to 10, we can increase it to 8. Doesn't mean we'll fill them.
That leads to my third question.
Yeah.
Which is how the lottery information is made available and kind of how the operations of that work. Like the application being made available, is that a paper application that somebody has to fill out
And they get it at the
hand
point
to
of
someone?
application. Yep.
Because I think that might be an obstacle to some people to participate in the lottery. If it was an online form, I know personally as a parent, I have participated in this process with other systems, and it is as simple as filling out a Google form to enroll in the lottery.
Ms. Masterson personally contacts every family that applies and provides that information to them.
Provides. No,
The lottery information.
I'm saying to just get your name on that list.
I think she's trying to simplify the application process.
Yes, instead of making it so that you have to fill out a form and deliver it, could we look at making that process more accessible?
I mean, we could. I don't know what problem I'm trying to solve because it hasn't been illustrated that that's an issue.
Well, I think that it was illustrated by the fact that we didn't fill those seats. That's what I'm getting at. I wonder if that is related. And so,
Because at this point, it's a printed application, right? You have to go online, you have to find the application,
Correct.
you have to print it, you have to fill it out, then you have to find a stamp, then you have to
I mean,
mail
we
it.
could go.
you have to hand it to
Yeah.
somebody. It has to be handed to the
Right,
right
you have to scan
person.
it. You have to-
There's no email that is sent to you documenting that your application has been received.
There is.
But with a Google, I think
Yeah.
what Amy's saying is with a Google form, wouldn't that make it easier for everyone? And then it timestamps it.
Yeah,
So I'm just,
it's easy to do. I don't think it's going to yield, but you're hoping it will yield because what we know about people that are come to us from school choice, they're eager. And when you're eager, you're going to grab that form and turn it in. So we want people who are eager to join us. We don't want to just make it so easy we can hardly tell who came in. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
we want to be able to assess those things.
yeah.
Happy to do that. But I don't think it's going to yield what you're looking for. I think what we've learned over the last couple of years is that there isn't a sort of a flush of people seeking out school choice. There are people who certainly want that. We start fielding those calls as early as February. And we point to this meeting. So we have people that are, I think, watching tonight because they watch this meeting. Will watch the hearing next week to that.
Yeah.
But
Can I just kind of poll the committee with a thumbs up, thumbs down? Would you guys favor an electronic application for school choice? If yes, give me a thumbs up. Are you questioning
I'm
my
not sure about the
question?
wording you provided. Do I
I'm
think it's
wondering-
being helpful? Yes. Do I think it's necessary?
No,
No.
I'm asking if you think we should move to an electronic application.
Madam Chair, with all respect, I think that's an operational decision. Happy to do it as a recommendation.
Well, would
but-
you recommend that the superintendent move to an electronic application? Give me a thumbs up if you think it matters. It feels like we don't have consensus on that. So we're going to leave it to the superintendent to manage it as he sees fit. But Jackie, question?
Not related to that.
Oh, okay, so was that all that you wanted
Yeah,
to?
and thank you. I'm not trying to take over an operational decision. I'm just sharing my personal experience that seemed much easier at other places. So
Yeah, no, well taken. Thanks,
You can
Amy.
submit it by email. That's
You can.
the easiest of all worlds.
Well, you can print it and then scan it and then
Right.
email it.
Right. And
So-
that's acceptable.
Yeah, you don't have to drive all the way here
Yeah.
or go to the post office.
So I think with that, I don't think we need a Google form.
I think it's important to put everything on the table, though. I think it's good discussion. So thank you guys for engaging in that. Yeah.
thank you.
Different question.
Yeah, so just a point of clarification, MRE does have open spaces, but they have multiple sections, so those rooms are reallocated. So from a
Yeah.
space perspective, they're,
balance.
yes, so there's not like an overflow of empty rooms at Emory.
That's correct.
I did want to just ask, and this is an operational question, so if you could just, I'm curious about what the process is for residents living in the district who move from one town to another, and do they have to go through the school choice process?
It's actually written in the policy around that, in appeal to the superintendent.
Okay.
It's written in our policy. I think it's a good question to ask because I've been thinking about that myself. And I think we should be thinking about those options, particularly maybe even prior to the budget season, to get an understanding of that and look at what inter-district balance may look like. So, yes, I'm thinking about that. There is an option for families that's based in our policy, and it's a request directly to the superintendent. So, and when those scenarios do come up, it's very clear that if approved to do that, you have to provide your own transportation, and that's written in the policy.
Thank you. All right, everybody. So, Chandra.
So, two questions I just can't remember in school choice. Is transportation the same for them, or they have to provide it themselves?
Yeah, they have to provide their own transportion.
The other one, I thanks to all the data you provided, I think I found the answer, but it's about the high school and your school choice recommendations. I know
High
that,
school, Mr. Simon?
yeah, that some schools see significant attrition over the 4 years of high school. And so, like, an argument could be made to sort of over-enroll in the 9th grade knowing you'll lose students to have those other grades higher. But my quick looking at this data suggests that we don't lose a ton of students over the 4 years.
That's correct. And, to Ms. Coleman's point, I think it's always a good idea. Well, I shouldn't say always, but it would be a good idea to look at those numbers, particularly, you're taking on freshmen, juniors, sophomores. You know what that impact is in the immediate years to come. However, I wouldn't recommend that this season. And the reason why is we just went through a significant budget season where we had to really slice thinly how many sections we have in the school system, including a reduction of 3.4 educators at the high school. So I wouldn't recommend going above that 4 today for that reason, so that we don't put ourselves in a place where we have to be adding back. And when you add back at the high school, it gets really complex. You're adding back in tenths, not full-time FTEs. They're 2/10 per course, essentially, that you have to add back.
Considering how far below the 220 we currently are at 10, 11, 12, I think there's a lot of risk if we made it 5 that we wouldn't run into that situation.
No, which is why I think if we apply the methodology here and in our applications we see a demand about that, we would come back to the school committee. And that doesn't necessarily even have to be done by June 1st, although we probably do it at the end of May meeting if we saw that, or that June meeting. We just have to have our hearing to open by June 1st, and we would still, I think, be able to address that then.
Any other questions? All right, everybody. So again, the hearing will be at our next meeting, and then we will be asked to take a vote. So if any community members want to weigh in, if committee members want to provide any feedback between now and then, please send it to me, and I can funnel it all to Kirk that way. So thanks for that, Kirk.
You bet.
Well done. So let's move the agenda, guys, to the next item here. And that is going to be policy first readings. And I'm going to turn it over to Subcommittee Chair Vessels so she can help us understand what we have here.
Well, I think Kirk wanted to speak about BDFA first, right? Kirk, you wanted to talk about that?
Yeah, do you want to bring up BDFA-E? Or let's do BDFA first, just to set the stage for -E.
Yeah.
So this is the update on school councils, if you scroll down. Okay. So this is sort of putting into the policy elements of the statute around school councils that recognize in the law, principal serves as the council with the co-chair of one of those members as well, using consent. This is where it gets, they say recommend using Robert's Rules of Orders, conform to the open meeting law. So it's actualizing those things in the law into the policy. So there's nothing earth-shattering around that policy, but I would ask us to go to -E. -E is the policy I recommend we table to figure out some things on this. I think it's written, this is around specifically school improvement plans. We have a structure where you all see these plans and approve them. And by statute, it's really only the high school that has to be approved, but we bring them all forward as a best practice. And in doing so, we always do that in the fall. This memorializes submission to the superintendent, not the committee, but to the superintendent by July 1st. I went to the committee to know now that our principals are working with their school councils today on that, like at least having targets to that. The problem with that, I think are obvious in terms of our timelines. When our data collections are done, when we're able to grab those metrics, when the councils are able to sort of look at that information and then sort of come together on some school goal language, when their last meeting is in June. It's like May, June. When they have their May meeting to look at it, we haven't collected that information yet. So the timeline, we got to figure out that timeline. There's just something about it that's wonky. The other part about this recommended policy, which is why at this point I don't think we should adopt it. If you can scroll down, Alita, back up a little more. I'm not seeing the section we talked about, Amy. Maybe it is down. Oh, thank you. Let me see.
Yeah, my version is different, actually.
Yeah, this
The one
version.
that mine has a lot more.
Go back.
I think this maybe is what he's looking for.
No, the one he's looking at.
It was the clause that would talk about it, recommended the types of things that should go in the school improvement plan. So it was just, the language was a recommendation, so it really wasn't, it didn't come off as policy language, but I'm not seeing it on this copy, Amy.
I'll
Well,
look back at it.
If you're suggesting that we table this now, I mean,
So, anyway, that's all I'm essentially saying is the DASHE's got a lot of work to do. I think we table that for now. I think that is our goal. We're trying to get our principals to work with their councils on how to make that work now so that we can take a look at it next year. This is what it comes down to.
All right, guys, so that is a recommendation of the superintendent. Can I get a thumbs up if everybody's okay with giving this a little bit more thought? All right, so we're gonna kind of pull this one out, but Amy can walk us through the remainder.
Yeah, the others are just, we had, like JH, we had talked to Kirk a little bit about what was being done in the schools, if this is what we were following in terms of how we were notifying parents about absences and the number of absences and that kind of stuff. And so we had some discussion around that. And he said that's discussion that they've had among the principals and stuff to make sure everybody's on the same page with that.
Yeah, there was a question, Mr. Powell, I believe you may have asked a question
Yeah,
about this.
he did.
And it was around, is that the practice that we're currently using
Yep.
of within 5 days? The answer to that is no. The practice that we're currently using, because I have to tell you, that's tricky. Getting within 5 days every time somebody hits 10. The practice that we're using is that when you hit 8, the courtesy call is given out to families that, hey, you're getting close to 10, and those are done in the monthly attendance reviews with the building-based attendance teams, which is usually the principal with their assistant, perhaps the school nurse, and looking at that. So it's not being executed to the letter of that policy is the short answer.
The other ones here are not, there was nothing significant. We're at the end of basically at the end of our list. And so there's nothing significant about them. We just hadn't gotten to those. And then the policies for removal, I put in the table why MASC was suggesting that they be removed, because a number of them they said this stuff was already in contract language, like in the contract policy language, so they felt it was redundant, and so they were taking out some of these policies.
Thanks, Amy, and thanks to the policy subcommittee. Are there any questions for the policy subcommittee on anything here?
just insofar as the removals are concerned, the corporal punishment one caught my attention. How else is that being addressed?
What number are you?
The last one, JKA.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't have a note on that, and it was not. I don't have an answer for that.
We don't have corporal punishment in the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I would hope not, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
you know, it's not. If it's not in the policy, how is it being? How is that being communicated to the community and staff?
That it's not allowed.
It's not
Yes.
allowed, you mean?
That's correct.
No.
It's illegal. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think it's
So it's state level statute, and that's how we.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean,
100%.
I think that's been well established for decades now, so it wouldn't
Fair enough.
need to be addressed.
I mean, when I was in 3rd grade, I saw it happen.
That's true.
I was in California, so
Yeah,
anything
so-
goes there.
Well, point well taken, but it is, yeah, physical abuse is not allowed.
Just a clarifying question. In all of these policies, the red line is what's coming from MASC.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we have put forward a different recommendation, we make note of that. We tell you guys that.
Okay, so is that what the blue is?
No, I don't know. Some people, so we split these up,
Okay.
and I don't know. Some people put blue in instead of red. It
And-
didn't mean anything.
And then I'm just asking for clarification that I'm recalling this correctly. I think that the wish was to stick as closely as possible
Yes.
to the language that is coming from MASC and not rewrite
Yes.
that much, if
Yes.
at all.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Amy, the piece that is removing the approval of handbooks and directives,
Yes.
why is that being removed? Is it because it exists somewhere else?
Yes. It got merged into something else.
Yep. Okay.
So.
Go ahead, John.
Just to Scott's comment, we have policy JKAA, which is about physical restraint, and it covers corporal punishment, that we don't do it. So I think it is in our policies somewhere.
JKAA, not a sub-policy of JKA?
No, only dash equals
Yeah.
the sub-policy.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, everybody. So if something comes to you, you can send it to me. I will send it along to Amy.
But this is it.
But this is the end. Well done, guys.
Oh, wait, no, I take it back. There's one more. There's actually just one policy.
One more hanging out there.
One,
So
yeah.
Amy will have her grand finale.
Yeah, we have one. I know something
Okay.
we missed. One.
Big paper.
Awesome. Can I just ask a quick question? This is maybe for the superintendent on student absences. I know that the 10-day window, if the student is absent for 10 days straight, doesn't Mass General Law require that you unenroll them?
Yeah, this is a conversation I need to bring to the committee.
So-
We need to review this, so I think we should put this on our items for future agendas.
Okay, because and I want to throw it onto the radar here that 10 days is actually not that long, and that students can sometimes either be ill for that long or be experiencing some sort of school refusal, etc., something that is and it can be even more traumatic for the school to then, if a child is suffering and not able to get to school for 10 days, 9 days, to then get the school feeling like they're threatening. And so I've seen this in my own personal, or in my own practice. So I just wonder about that, and with regard to this policy, I recognize that it's Mass General Law, right?
Yeah.
But I want to, in the protocols of it all, make sure that the district is exercising caution with families who might be experiencing trauma.
Mr. Master, you talked to school refusal scenarios as well as medical needs.
Yeah, so school districts are very sensitive to those, and I would say when you unenroll or look to unenroll, you're really not getting a response from a family, or because typically with a school refusal, we start to enact a process through student services that could be looking at the data, potentially making a referral to special education because they'll need a support, enacting some of our guidance or social work to really support the family in that process. Plus, we're working on a whole school refusal through our student nursing services has been focused on that piece as well. The second part is a home hospital. So if a student has an illness, a long-term illness, we ask families to fill out the home hospital form, and then we support them with whatever needs through that home hospital. So we'll oftentimes supply tutoring services through a hospitalization or in the home if necessary. So those are those cases where you really want to stop and really work with the family. I think when you're looking at types of unenrollment, you're not getting a response, or it's something that might be outside the scope of that type of support that's needed. And
just
I
note-
think, I know as a principal committee, we're looking at that.
Yeah, this is actually one of the things we're discussing even tomorrow morning. But in those scenarios that Mr. Mange talked about, the student is recorded as present. They're not recorded as absent if they're receiving instructional services at home.
Great. And yeah, gotcha.
Just to clarify on that, so it's according to Mass General Law that if a student has 10 unexcused absences
In a row.
in a row, then they will be unenrolled. That's what you're saying. So
The school district has the authority to unenroll that child.
I think, though, this is where some of the confusion, you could have some confusion about what is an unexcused absence versus what is an excused absence. Because, so does the parent excusing the absence, so the act of calling the school and saying my child will not be at school today for X, does that excuse the child because there was a contact?
No.
Or is that an unexcused absence?
Now, there's a misnomer that because you call and say the absence is excused, it's excused. There's no such mechanism. It's just an absence. So in the event that a student is absent for 10 days, the most often scenario that we get for this is when families travel overseas. That's the most common reason for that. And so it's at that point where we would want to have a conversation with them about that. This is why I think it would be an important topic for a future agenda item to bring forward, because we can get into that.
I have put it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So anything else on the policy first reading? All right, so seeing none, let's move the agenda forward here and move to unfinished business, which is to approve the minutes of April 9th, 2025, meeting 1. And I wonder if Amy could fashion a motion.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of the Nashoba Regional School District School Committee from April 9th, 2025. Meeting 1.
I will second that. Sounds good, Alita?
Do we have to vote to remove the policies?
Yes, we do have to do that.
Well,
That was the first reading.
That's what it says in the agenda.
Oh,
You remove the policies.
To remove the policies?
yeah, so I am going to actually, without objection from the committee, we will wait until the next meeting, because we don't ever do we should just wait for that. So that, I missed that little vote word. So we'll put that on the next agenda consider that a part of the second readings. All right, so going back to the motion that was on the table, any discussion on the minutes that you guys have in front of you, correct, Alita? That's what you just passed out, so you guys can take a moment to review them before you vote. She's good, that's why we have Alita. Any questions on the minutes? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that is unanimous.
Who seconded it?
I think I did.
You did.
All right, everybody. So thank you for that. We do have subcommittee and advisory reports on the agenda right now, and so if anybody has anything that they feel compelled to share from their subcommittee, we do have that in our upcoming agenda that we will be sharing our progress toward our goal for our subcommittees, and we look forward especially to hearing from policy on the decision-making tool and how that works.
We will not be meeting before that.
Yeah.
Not next time. It will be the time after.
So we can maybe touch base on that, make sure it's okay. All right, guys, items for next agenda. We have the planning calendar up so that you can look at that. Feels like we have a pretty big gap between now and April 30th. I hope everybody enjoys April vacation, if you can. Last day of school announcement, we will unveil it officially with no
I took
snow.
it off of this week so I didn't jinx us. You know?
Yeah, no snow, hopefully. We're going to be hearing from Dr. Boynton with an NRHS update, including a NEASC piece and the progress toward that accreditation.
Madam Chair, May 14th
Yeah.
is the date that I am in Washington, D.C.
Oh, it is.
So just be, I haven't received the schedule of events yet. I may be appearing remotely, so
Okay.
Assistant Superintendent Friend and I will coordinate on the meeting that
Yeah, well, okay, very good.
This presentation should be not Montreal. Last year was Montreal, this year was
Oh, interesting. So right here, if you guys can see that, should that say France? As opposed to Montreal?
Yeah.
We'll clarify.
Okay.
I think that's right.
All right, so you can change that at your will.
They'll be in France and
France is right now.
Yeah.
They're going to
Oh,
France.
this is from next year.
This is next year.
Very good.
There you go. Well, that explains my confusion.
Perfect. All right, everybody, anything to add? So the parking lot is there for you to review as well. If there's anything, well, we're going to take the enrollment and space study off. We know that NEASC update is coming through Dr. Boynton's presentation. Everything else can remain. All right, everybody. All's good? I'm going to move to adjourn. Very good, Jackie. All those in favor? Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.